So I am going to, first of all, I want to thank a dear friend, Karen Nagel, who many of you may know, who made this connection. So thank you. She wasn't able to be on today, and she was going to be doing the introduction. So first of all, Mayor Gallego, thank you for joining us today. And I just want to share a little bit about the mayor for those of you who haven't met her until now. Mayor Gallego grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Her parents are attorneys who moved to Albuquerque from Chicago after the 1979 Chicago blizzard. She grew up with asthma, making air quality important to her. And I think today we can all appreciate how important that is. She earned a bachelor's degree in environmental studies from Harvard College and a master of business administration from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. Mayor Gallego worked for the Arizona Office of Tourism as well as on economic development and strategic planning for the Salt River Project. In 2013, Mayor Gallego was elected to the Phoenix City Council. She was reelected in 2017. And then in 2018, she was elected as the mayor of Phoenix. And she is the third woman to hold the office since Phoenix's founding and the youngest mayor of one of the 10 largest cities in the United States. Mayor Gallego, as many of you may not know or know, is Jewish. She was bat mitzvahed in Albuquerque. She has one young son, and we are very appreciative of your time today. And I'm going to give you the floor.
Wonderful. Well, it's fabulous to be with all of you here today. And thank you, Rabbi, for first providing this community for all of us, and then for your service to the city as well. We are grateful, and it is, I think, particularly poignant to be together on September 11th, which I now remember September 11th, 2001 for some of the difficult things, but also when we came together as a country. And I think many of us remember those days when we see that we have more in common than what divides us. And that is something I long for right now, especially at such a difficult time in our country while we are fighting COVID-19 and the skies above Phoenix are looking a little bit different because of so much of our country being on fire. And understand now 10% of the population of Oregon is displaced for the fires. So what a time, but it's good to be together because I miss being with people in a way that we haven't been since COVID started. So thank you so much for having me today. As you heard in the introduction, I was elected last year in 2019 to serve in the role of mayor, and have really appreciated that opportunity. I acquired the last name Gallego through marriage. So it was originally Woodland, which was originally Woodlansky, but my grandfather changed it in hopes of getting into medical school. He was concerned his name sounded too Jewish. For whatever reason, it didn't work for him. He did not get into medical school, but that was the last name with which I was born. So some people often ask about that. And the last name, although there are certainly, the Gallego last name is Spanish, and there's certainly a robust Jewish community with that heritage as well. But I thought I might mention that as by part of introduction, and then maybe we can go straight to any questions the rabbi has and anyone else.
All right, sure. So I'll start with some questions. I'm going to I want to keep you as the featured video. If anyone wants to see others on the Zoom, you can definitely go to gallery view. And that's for you, for the mayor as well. So I'm going to start off. These are some of the prepared questions we had. And again, if someone has a question for the mayor, please do send me that message in the chat. So here is, I guess, an important question that many of us would love to know. How does your faith inform your work as a public servant?
I think one of the things that's very important about the Jewish faith is the teaching that all people have value. And so that's something that I think about often, particularly over the last year. There have been real policy questions about how much we should take care of those who are most vulnerable. And to me, everyone matters in this community. So, my parents are older and may have health challenges, but they are important and essential, and so is everyone. We are having real debates now about how important it is to save lives, and I think that, for me, my faith has informed my response to that. If you've followed over the last year, we've had elected officials in Arizona with very different perspectives. Some who do not want to change any behavior and think masks are totally appalling. And then I would put myself on the side of the spectrum that says we are in this together. When we change behaviors and do things like wearing masks, we can save lives, and we ought to do it to show how we value everyone in this community. So that's, I think, been important and been a source of inspiration and meaning for me.
Thank you. I think a lot of people resonate with that. So here is a question. Obviously, this is a group of older, mature adults. So what does the city of Phoenix do that specifically affects seniors? I guess for the good and of course in other ways as well.
So about 10% of the city of Phoenix's population is over 65. And we are trying to build a city that works for people of all ages. We have a wide variety of services that we've tried to deliver throughout my time and then during COVID. There's been some changes. We have our beloved senior centers at the city of Phoenix, and right now we've moved them to more virtual, but still having folks in the senior centers do a similar program to this one where there's check-ins and also one-on-one check-ins, meal delivery for people for whom it might be a risky situation to go out and buy food. And I think that's been very, very valuable. This weekend, I think Sunday is Grandparents' Day, and that's one that's important to us in the city and to me personally. I have a 3-year-old right now who's with his grandparents so that I can be with you, and I'm grateful to how they've helped me get through this. The city has tried to do more and more programs to support grandparents, whether that be through our libraries and programming, or we now have even started doing some of our housing programs to support grandparents who are the primary caregivers for their children and have financially supported with a great nonprofit partner, a whole community that's really targeted at providing support for grandparents who are key to all generations right now. We also are one of the few cities in the nation to be an age-friendly community, and that is a partnership that was inspired by AARP. They had a wide variety of policy guidelines for us, which included everything to timing meetings so that they make sense for people, well, before COVID, who didn't want to drive at night, so Dave time meetings, but then different accessibility investments, requiring us to survey older adults and try to address needs in the community, make sure we're doing research, and then just how we design communities, what services are near neighborhoods. So that's been a great partnership with AARP. We are also a dementia-friendly city. Tempe took a leadership role in this and became, I think, Arizona's first dementia-friendly city, and we've been trying to learn from what they've done. And that includes everything from caregiving facilities for people experiencing dementia to what we call caregivers cafes, where there's a chance for caregiving, which not during COVID can be in person, and a break for people who are full-time caregivers, and then a time for those caregivers to come together and talk about the challenges they are facing while the person experiencing dementia has also support services. So we're going virtual with those during the era of COVID. That's one that's personally meaningful to me. I lost my grandmother a little over 1.5 years ago, and she had experienced dementia for more than 7 years. And it was, I consider myself fairly well-read and educated, but it was tough on our entire family, and just not understanding the changes she was going through right away. I hope we can help other people navigate that challenge if it's one that you need. We also have information on weatherization assistance. So if your air conditioner has gone out, appliance replacement and repair through the city's neighborhood services department. We have Dial-A-Ride, which is a service where we can come to your house if their mobility challenges and pick people up and help them navigate the community. And then we have some neat programs where we try to take advantage of older adults in the community to help our next generation. My favorite being Read on Phoenix, which is a reading partnership where some of our retired community members can read with students and get that one-on-one interaction that not every child has in the home. And I still have a young one who I get to read to every night, but for those of you who are missing that experience, that's a cool program that is out there.
I actually love these. I didn't know a lot of these things. Where can people find more information on that? Is that on phoenix.gov?
Yes, so neighborhood services does a lot of the programs that go out in the community, and then our youth and education office does the reading partnership.
Okay, yeah, because I think people would like that. I actually know someone who volunteers with that, but they were doing it through the library. So some sort of a reading program. This is obviously way before COVID, but yeah, that's a beautiful program. Okay, so going a little bit away from seniors, but we're going to come back to that. Do you think your time, because this is, of course, it's election season, we see so much of the party politics. Do you think your time as mayor has been influenced by party politics? Which is, I guess I'll leave it at that.
I do. I run local government in Phoenix is nonpartisan. So when I am on the ballot, there is not a letter next to my name. And people tell me that's really how it felt decades ago. I think now it does inform, party response does inform people's viewpoints, and it's in some ways, with so many candidates on the ballot, voters are looking for a quick way to put you in a box and what your values are, and party is a way that people do that, which I think in many situations has value, and in some maybe stops people from looking at the individual and realizing every person running for office, regardless of party label, has hers or own story and is motivated by things that are unique to them. So sometimes you cannot see things if you just look at party labels. Generally during COVID, I would say at the local government level across cities, we've been working very well together. Some of the council members with whom I've worked most closely during COVID did not maybe share my party identification. And if you look at the city level, mayors from both parties have implemented mask requirements in their cities. So there have definitely been some good news, but there are others, particularly in some of the hot button issues where people may go to their partisan corners pretty easily, and that sometimes makes it harder to get things done. Like most mayors across the country, I am very nervous about whether the federal government can continue to partner with us on key issues. It was concerning this week. The Senate voted on and did not pass an aid bill, and it seems likely there may not be an aid bill between now and the election, but there is so much need, and we are trying to ramp up for flu season, for vaccine delivery, and so many challenges where it would be good to be working closely with all levels of government. So you do worry what that means for the future, but we're a resilient country, and on this day of all others, it's good to remember we're gonna get through this.
I like that. It's a great ending point. Okay, so I'm staying on, I guess, on the voting and politics part for a moment. For seniors who want to make sure their vote is counted in November, and I know everyone is worried about that, whether it's through mail-in ballots or just being safe at the voting locations, what suggestions do you have for them to make sure that their vote is counted?
Incredibly important, and thank you for being involved in making key leadership decisions through your vote. In our primary this year, Arizona had record involvement during a pandemic, and so that I think was a good indicator that we can run a good election in Arizona during COVID-19. City of Phoenix is not running the election, but I am watching closely what the county and state is doing. I personally plan to vote by mail, and I'm going to turn it in right away just to make sure it gets out and gets counted. Some of you will laugh at this, but I often have kept my ballot because I enjoy seeing the different mail that candidates send and what they are saying. I know so many of the people who are running for office, and I'm interested on what they choose to emphasize and say to voters. So I know probably everyone is laughing and hates those mailers, or maybe not hates, but maybe doesn't look forward to them in the way that I find them interesting. When you turn in your ballot, most candidates will remove you from their mailing list. So perhaps for most people, a good reason to turn it in quickly. I know there are many Arizonans who love voting in person, and if that's a better solution for you, the city is trying to provide support and locations for people who want to vote in person but still need to keep distance. So for at least the first time that I can remember, the Phoenix Convention Center is a voting location this year, and that is a huge building with plenty of space for social distancing. And then our traditional polling places like Burton Bar, where many people may be used to voting, will continue to be polling places. In my own election, 95% of people voted by mail. And I think Arizona has shown we are good at administering elections by mail. So I have confidence in that system, but I know there's been a lot of discussion about it this year.
Right. So talking about the election that's upcoming, this is more, I guess, for you specifically, what are your 3 highest priorities for Phoenix right now?
So when I ran for office, I talked a lot about public safety, investing in infrastructure from our transportation system to our water system, and then building a diverse, sustainable economy. And I think those continue to be important priorities. Phoenix is America's fastest growing city. We continue to grow right now. If you're following our housing market, people are still moving to this community in the middle of a pandemic. Of the 10 largest construction markets, Phoenix is the only one that has seen an uptick during COVID-19. So we are very much still a growing city. But I would say in terms of priorities right now, I still think navigating through the virus is an incredibly important priority. We've seen 8 weeks of downward trends, which is wonderful. Lower use of hospital beds and ventilators and other equipment, but in the last week also some upward trends in some areas. So I think we continue to need to be careful. I'm going to be doing a lot of work with other mayors to talk about the value of getting a flu shot in the short term, and then working to make sure we are prepared to deliver vaccines when they are ready. I had an interesting conversation with one of the larger makers of vaccines, and they said there may turn out to be different vaccines for different demographics. So older adults might get a different vaccine than some of our younger residents, which was very interesting. And so we're trying to think through, how do you prepare for all of that? How do you make sure you have sufficient cold storage in the right places to get vaccines that need to be refrigerated to people? How do you do large scale events? We're really trying to learn from what we did on testing with COVID-19 to be able to deliver medical support during a pandemic when we know the virus travels by air. So a lot of planning around responding to COVID and then recovery as well. Everyone has changed their behavior, and there's a lot of loss and suffering in the community. So how do we support our small businesses, our arts and culture organizations, our students who are learning differently? All of you have changed your lives, and how do we make sure people who worked so hard for their entire lives and now have lost so much, how do we get out of this and hopefully come out stronger and smarter?
It's amazing how everyone's priorities changed because of COVID. So with regard to COVID, just a follow-up question, where is Phoenix with regard to its handling of the COVID-19 crisis? I know you mentioned you are seeing spikes in certain parts of the state. And I was listening on the radio yesterday, Chief Jerry Williams from the Phoenix Police Department mentioned about she has, I guess, the property crimes, this is what she was saying, division that actually is there to either cite or educate businesses on their, I guess, patrons not keeping to social distancing and masks and things like that. So in general, where is Phoenix with the COVID-19 crisis and its handling of it?
So July, we were quite a hot spot nationally and internationally. And as I mentioned, more recently have trended in the right direction. Thanks to people like you changing behavior. And I imagine if we'd done this a year ago, we'd have been together in person. So thank you for, I know a flat screen isn't the same as the warmth of people directly around you, although it does, it's nice just to see faces and feel like you're with people. ASU has said that masks have probably reduced transmission by about 35%, which is very significant. And then it's also just been helpful. We've learned more about how the virus spreads. We now think most of the cases are human to human spreading. So I assume, like many of you, I did some aggressive cleaning in the early COVID months, and I was just wiping down every service every day, and am now more focused on social distancing from people and that type of protection. And so it's been good to know where to be careful. In Phoenix, West Phoenix in the Maryville area is our hotspot right now for COVID, but we have spots throughout the city. We've recently just done a push in sort of the greater airport area to try to do more testing and support services as well. So there is some regional difference even within our city, but generally positive trends. But then there's been, they say the epi curve. So we have been seeing a little bit of an uptick. So hopefully a reminder of all of us that we are not through this completely, but we know more and are doing better than we were earlier this year.
Is that an education thing for those communities or areas, or is that just social distancing fatigue? What's your thought on that?
What epidemiologists are telling me is that it's not terribly surprising to see a little bit more spread as we have lifted some restrictions. So within fairly recently, the governor has allowed more businesses to open. And so we would expect to see a little bit of an uptick in the spread when that happens. But a reminder that COVID is still very much with us. Hundreds of people, I think 426 people yesterday. So we're sort of back at early June levels, which July was our really tough month here. So I think the message is we're not through it, but that generally we've learned a lot and people have made generally smart decisions.
So just a couple more questions before I move to some of the questions that came in, 2 through email and a couple through the chat, and you'll tell us how long you have. But for seniors who, and of course this is for anyone, who would like to make their needs or desires known to your office, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
We hear from people in many different ways. Some call, some email. We've had people, we have public comment at council meetings or on specific agenda items. And so that is a good way to participate, and certainly anything that folks think we should have on our radar screen. We've learned a lot and gotten a lot of best practices from our community, and especially now when I feel like I am less out in the community than before, because I am also trying to follow my own advice and stay home. And so it's great when people can share things that are happening. And every once in a while, it's good to hear some good news too. If you have any good news, we would welcome that.
I like that. So if you're going to reach out to the mayor, start with something positive. Say something you liked.
You don't have to, but every once in a while. We've had city employees just do heroic things during COVID-19, and it's wonderful if you see someone and recognize.
Right.
We have folks who deliver clean water, who pick up your trash, who keep our city clean, and they don't always get the recognition, but many of them have been essential frontline workers out there. Today, I think particularly about our first responders. We do have Phoenix first responders who are still working at the city who responded to 9/11. And so that's, if one of them is close to your heart, it would be good to know that as well.
Thank you. And talking about 9/11, I guess this is more of like a sentimental question. First of all, do you remember where you were? And then as a follow-up, what do you do as mayor of City of Phoenix to combat extremism?
So on 9/11, I was a college student in Boston. My roommate's father worked at the Pentagon in the area where one of the planes hit. And so that was a very long and tough day, particularly supporting her. She did not hear from her father for quite a while. And we assumed the worst and were just glued to television, trying to understand what had happened, why it had happened. The good news is her father is still with us today, which is wonderful. But I remember in the weeks following 9/11, she knew so many people who lost their lives in 9/11, and just being in that military community and having grown up with so many people who gave their lives serving our country. But in a building that she thought, her dad was finally safe when he's deployed overseas, that was when you worried, and the Pentagon was thought to be a safer assignment. So that was tough times. The hijackers parked in a parking garage very close to where I was living at the time. And I remember the investigation and uncertainty and just how much life changed for everyone. But also the way that I do try to celebrate the way our country came together after that, and people stepped up to give blood, to provide support to those who lost loved ones. So there were many really inspiring moments after that. We know that we still very much have to combat extremism. My first day as mayor of Phoenix, I joined with the Anti-Defamation League and other groups. With my first act as mayor was a proclamation against hate, and really affirming that commitment that we are a welcoming city, and we continue to try to show that is our values and put that forward. Our police chief has advisory boards from different faith communities, including the Jewish community, and we try to work together with them, both in good times, but also in the tough times when we have like the Tree of Life synagogue attacks and others. And there have been an increase in anti-Semitic incidents in our community. So we are trying to work on how to address that, and also try to work on interfaith activities. So I try to participate in interfaith activities and show that we're all working together, and that, again, our faith will do better when we come together and not attack each other. But it's a tough time in I think leadership in our country right now. And so just having good conversations like this is probably one of the things that will help us in supporting the great works that ADL and others are doing to combat hate.
So as a follow-up to this question, this is actually something that came in the email yesterday. And it's a three-part question, so I can repeat them afterwards. So first of all, what was your reaction to the hate signs that were posted in Tempe and on the ASU campus just about 10 days ago? And then as her follow-up question was, she didn't see in the news that the federal agents were called in like for other hate crimes. So maybe you have a better understanding of where that, I guess, line gets crossed, where it becomes federal. And then what would you do if this happened in Phoenix?
All very important questions. So there is a regional coordinating center, and they call it a homeland defense effort that tries to work together and monitor physical hate crimes, but also the online space, and understand what is happening. We are trying to work with multiple levels of government and try to implement what we think are national best practices to send messages to people who may be particularly susceptible to joining hate group, and try to, the FBI has a program that tries to use national best practices to, particularly with some younger folks who might be susceptible, to try to have mentoring and dialogues and others to try to do prevention. And we try to support some other groups. Anti-Defamation League has curriculum and programs that can go out into schools, and our City of Phoenix has tried to support several of those different types of program, because we obviously join all of you in being concerned that hate crimes are going in the wrong direction nationally and in Arizona as well. So we know we are not through it, and I hope we can first really try to combat hate and through education, but when people commit crimes, we will use law enforcement as a result, and we have had Phoenix Police has done several very important investigations, and people have been convicted in this community. We have our Equal Opportunity Office is led by a gentleman, Don, who won one of the prestigious awards from the Anti-Defamation League, and he was a victim of a hate crime himself, a bomb at his front door. And so he has also been particularly playing an important leadership role in the city and trying to help us be a safer community for everyone.
Thank you. And now this follow-up question, I'm going to rephrase it, so it's not going to be exactly her
And
wording.
I apologize. I had a 1 o'clock, and they're messaging me that I better get on shortly. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to say goodbye right now.
Okay. All right. Well, we very much appreciate your time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, thank you so
very
much for creating this wonderful space, and it's fabulous to see all of you. Stay safe out there.
Thank you very much. All right. I am going to unmute everyone that you can. Hold on. All right. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to actually forward it to her communication assistant who we were reaching out to. Paula, I really wanted her to answer that last question that you sent me. And I'll share it with everyone here so you can hear what the question was. And I'm rephrasing it, but really because she's Jewish and a politician, so this is how I would rephrase it. But how does she look at the idea of, do you support a candidate specifically because they support Israel and Jewish people, or how does that play into, or how would she answer that question? Paula, you worded it obviously a little bit more strongly, but that was one question. There's some good questions about BLM that I got in the chat. Any question I know the answer to, I'll share the question and answer. Someone asked how you can join the council meetings, because she mentioned one of the ways to actually reach out to them and share comments or thoughts or questions. That's actually on their website. So if you go to phoenix.gov, there's a way to join into a council meeting, watch it, or even share your comments. And someone else asked if there was a 9/11 memorial today. There was. It was downtown. I'm not exactly sure how it looked in the sense of if she was there, but that was definitely there. Let's see. I do not know the answer, Willie. I don't know the answer about her Governor Ducey relationship. We'll have to start looking at some of her public statements and questions. And the answer, Judy, about Phoenix teaching Holocaust in the schools, it's actually something that the state legislature is taking up, nothing to do with Phoenix, that it's going to be a requirement to be in the curriculum for all I think from 7th grade and on. So they are working on that from a state level. I don't know if she was involved in that, but I do know some of the individuals involved with that. Any other questions? You can unmute your mic. You can share your thoughts.
Rabbi, the question that I had asked about the hate signs that were up in Tempe and at ASU, I wish she would have answered the way. What I wanted to know is why it wasn't
A federal
thing, why it wasn't pursued. It was like brushed under the rug. And I know universities tend to do that because they don't want the bad publicity, so they hide it. But that shouldn't be hidden. I mean, those signs were.
I can, I know who to ask about that. So I'm going to send a message to someone who used to work in bias crimes for Phoenix, and he would probably know if it constitutes that or not.
I mean, I would guess that the university has video cameras all over the campus, and it
Right.
should be reasonable to be able to identify, you know, who and when that was done. Yeah.
If anyone on here actually knows the answer to this question, feel free to chime in on that one.
What were the signs? What did they say?
I can actually find it.
I was looking it up. I couldn't find it.
It was September, either August 30th or September 1st.
I have a picture I can share in a minute.
Yeah, because when I sent the notices on September 1.
It hit the news that night, and then it was like hushed. There was never another word about it.
Somebody from the university in, I think, administration or whatever, made some sort of a comment. I guess it may have only occurred on the campus that, you know, they don't condone this kind of behavior. But it really didn't until, I don't remember her name. There's a woman reporter that put something on. I think it's called Co-Live or Cow Live.
Oh, I'll share it. I think, is that the one from the rabbi in Tempe?
Yes, and it was September 1 that I responded to a comment. But she and I have been going